Mhm. Well, I got a Lisa and I got a Brian. Can anybody hear me?
I hear you, Rich. How you doing? Hey, Rich, I got you.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Well, yeah. We got two pretty ladies and Brian. I guess that's a win. I got my dog laying on the floor, so I can't move. Let's see.
Afternoon, Lisa.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good, bet yourself.
Good. Just texting our consultants and seeing where they are. And
Okay. We've got some time.
yes, it is a whole 3 minutes before 3:30, right? Everybody's going from Zoom to Zoom. So
That's all we've been doing. We went through three of them. Plus, I had one early this morning, so it's all I managed.
actually I had an in-person meeting today of all things. So
My dog's laying down here. Can't roll around. In dog years, she's 4 years older than I am. That's old.
Hey, good afternoon, Brian.
Justin, how you doing?
Oh, good. Just doing a mic check.
You got your 5x5.
Good copy.
We'll wait a few more minutes. I know there's a number of individuals looking to attend.
we have Mike Whipple, who's one of our consultants, and then we're just waiting for Chris Austin, and we had some of our builder members who also wanted to listen in on all the technical discussion. Hey, Matt, is Chris close? Is he
Yeah, let me walk down. He was on another call, but I think he was going to jump off to jump on here.
cool?
Let me ask him.
Lisa, still waiting for others from your group?
Yeah, we're just waiting for Chris Austin, he
Chris is on
and
now.
Matt Johnson. Matt just went down the hall to see what the deal was. Oh, there
Yeah,
he is.
Chris.
Okay.
He's on.
Okay, cool.
Chris.
But he's still testing. So yeah, Chris and Mike Whipple are the leads for their two teams of the consulting firms that BIA and its members commission to do the peer reviews, and they're going to be our technical spokespeople for this discussion. So
Okay. Well, my name is Brian McLean. I'm the Director of Public Works with the City of Vacaville. Welcome, everyone. We are to make sure that we're all in the same place or the correct meeting, because we are all bouncing around for meetings. Just a quick background, the city is going through the 2025 DIF, Development Impact Fee Update process. On August 22nd, the BIA submitted a letter with two peer review memorandum related to their analysis of the city's analysis of the DIF and the Nexus Study from DPFG and DFA. And then on September 9th, the city compiled and submitted a response back to BIA with the city's responses. I want to introduce real quick the city's team that is on this project. And I'll start with Gwen Owens, and Typhion Rice Evans, Annie from the City Attorney's Office. We've got Justin Cole from Utilities. And again, my name is Brian McLean. Lisa,
And Brian, we also have Eric from Bartle Wells.
Very good. Eric, good to meet you. Lisa, do you want to introduce your members? Oh, she's
I'm
frozen.
sure for some reason I have an unstable internet connection here. Here we go. Now I'm back. So I'm going to toss it to Chris, and who can toss it to Mike, and they introduce their team members. And we also have some BIA members on the call too. Maybe we'll have them introduce themselves as well. So, Chris, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. Chris Austin with DPFG, along with my colleague Matt Johnson.
Mike Whipple with DFA, along with my colleague Ben Kerrigan.
And then Rich Alexander, I'm certain you all know him, but he can introduce himself.
Afternoon, Rich.
And Tom Philippi, equally recognized in Vacaville, certain.
Good to see you all. Good to see you all.
Tom, good to see you. Okay, so introductions done. At this point, at least I was thinking for expediency and keep the meeting going, and we've got a bit to go through, I'm sure, but to produce a most productive meeting, I thought we would pick one of the peer review memos and go through the city's response to that. And I'm open as the team is here in starting with either DPFG or DFA. Any preference?
Toss a coin. I'm certain either will be fine as long as we get through both of them.
Okay. Why don't we go through the DPFG first? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Everybody got that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, Gwen or Typhoon, do you want to start us off with going through these questions and then the responses?
Sure. I think maybe Gwen and I can tag team this. Let me just trying to make it so I can. Eyes are not as good as they. There we go. Used to be. I think the first point here is a confirmation, if I am reading it correctly, of the adopted service standard
Correct.
of the
Correct.
city. And I think there's some confirmation there and a little bit of explanation, I think, in the city response of what was netted out of the neighborhood parkland amounts. Am I missing anything in that comment or to talk about? Okay. Okay. The next one, Gwen, I think you're perhaps best.
Yeah, so the next one is when we did the 1992 diff, the original diff, Lagoon Valley wasn't a thing. When we went to go update the 2022 diff, by mistake, we included Lagoon Valley, not fully understanding all of the settlement agreements, and the settlement agreements basically say that Lagoon Valley, they have to pay their traffic impact fee, but it only goes to the interchange, the Lagoon Valley interchange, and they're not responsible for any other, traffic impacts outside of Lagoon Valley. So the discrepancy between the 2022 and the 2025 diff in the land use for traffic is the fact that Lagoon Valley, both the Lagoon Valley population and also the interchange cost for Lagoon Valley was taken out of that.
Yeah, I think the comment here was just trying to understand the universe and making sure we had the proper population to to calculate the existing standard and the acreages, that kind of stuff. So I think, I think that's not the main point of the comment, but I think understand that when we're trying to triangulate between what Mike was looking at and we're looking at, making sure we're on the same universe. And so that clarifies that. So I don't think we need to go through
And the
that.
same thing with the fire. And so it's unfortunately, it's not well documented of for traffic that we did this, and we'll get that corrected in the report and everything like that. The fire is the same thing because Lagoon Valley is responsible for building their own fire station. They don't pay that fire fee, but that's well documented in the Nexus study. So we'll get that for traffic rectified. Okay.
Before we leave that one, is there a reason that I see the comment, but maybe a little explanation as why we're using population estimates from 22 versus the updated population estimates of 25?
Yeah, so basically when we did the 2022, it was started in 2016. By the time everybody got through all their stuff and worked through all of cost estimates, etc., it was 2022. We were trying to get it approved before the June 30th, 2022 deadline, because after that deadline, it went to square footage, and we didn't want to be one of the first agencies to explore how to do that, because we wanted to learn from other agencies. So when from 2019, most of the cost estimate, 2018, 2019, from 2019 to 2022, we had issues with COVID and supply chain that our costs went up. Then on top of that, after that, we also had incredible inflation, huge cost increases. So the purpose of this was supposed to be a minor update, that we kept the same baseline. So we kept the same population, we kept the same projects. We were just really rectifying a few items in the Parks and Rec, and then also updating our cost estimates, because our cost estimates that were in the 2022 diff are way out of whack with what the current cost estimates are. And you can see that by the CCI index from spring of 2019 to currently. So that's why, and so if we went and updated the population, it would be a major overhaul for the actual project.
I think in the grand scheme of things, it's a minor part of the calculation, but it's part of the which is the next comment, which is the vast difference between the existing standard and what we're being asked to mitigate to. So that this comment only kind of enhances that thing, but we want to put that on record.
So you're talking about the Parks and Rec standards and such?
Yeah, the next comment, which is the
Okay,
main comment.
okay. Basically. All right,
So we're good with this one?
I think we should spend our time on the next comment because that would
yeah, this is the Parks and Rec one you're talking about.
this is
Um,
park acreage.
Yeah, park acreage. So
Yeah,
if you want to take that, Typhoon.
yeah, I'm just wanting to make sure. Yeah, this is so. Yeah, so as I think you all know, the cities have a long-standing standard, adopted service standard of 4.5 acres per thousand that it pretty sure it applied in 1992 and also has applied in 2022.
It was applied in the 2022 diff.
22,
So
okay, not 1992.
the previous
Okay.
diff before that was 1992. I'm not sure what the standard was in 1992.
Okay.
We could go back and figure it out, but
Yeah, okay.
that was not part of what we were doing.
Got it. Anyway, so yeah, so the city is, like many cities, intending to continue to use its adopted service standard. It's not, I think it's not unusual or uncommon. I think the point that you make is well, your point you make is a fair one in terms of, and I think we'd have to look at, I don't know whether the city's numbers break down in the same way. I think you end up with 2.83 acres per thousand. I'm not sure. That would have to be kind of looked at in more detail. But I mean, the bottom line is that the city intends to adopt fees, or at least has developed its maximum fees. The city council can obviously change this around the 4.5 acres per thousand, recognizing that if there is a difference between existing and that standard, that the city would have to, the new development is not responsible for that, and the city would have to fund those investments in parks from other funding sources.
So I think that is I agree with you that the city has to fund that. And at your cost estimates for both land acquisition and construction, that's $216 million. And so
that's based on your estimates of parks, right?
It's based on the existing standards, based on the Parks Master Plan, and it's based on your cost estimates for land acquisition and construction.
No, but it's based on your 2.83 acres per thousand.
Right. Which is based on the inventory in the Parks Master Plan brought forward with Tom's group and trying to be accounting for actual stuff on the ground. So
yeah, we do want to double check that. But yeah, I agree. Let's just say whatever it is, whether it's 3.5 or 2.5 or 3, there is a difference.
It's
right?
a substantial lift from what it's been provided to date. And again, if you cost that out, it's $216 million of infrastructure that our park acquisition development that the city has to provide.
Mhm.
And what are the sources to do that? And I guess, how has the city in the past done that? And again, we looked at the existing CIP. Measure M is contributing to parks this year to the tune of $225,000. So, I mean, and this is the same concept on the recreational side. You've created another $200 million matching obligation there. So there's $400 million plus of identified city obligations in order to ask new development to make the same kind of investment. And the response from us is, if you're going to make us pay for it, where are your sources? How do you tend to do that? Because if you don't, then what ends up happening is that all the facilities that we provide become the city standard, and you never reach the standard that you're trying to get to. So, I mean, $400 million of identified funding gap is substantial, and I don't know, and does the city have that kind of wherewithal to do that over the next 20 years? That's $20 million a year dedicated to park and rec facilities.
Can I add a comment that might change the tenor here a little bit? Brian McLean and I were in a meeting, and I have to apologize because I wish I had thought about this earlier. For years and years and years here in Vacaville, we had a school facility sharing agreement on parks. And so you go to Browns Valley Elementary School, and there was a huge city park next to the school district facilities, and you could go back and forth. Now there's a fence in between because the city and the school district can't play nice in the sandbox. And all of a sudden, we're talking about all this great need for parks, and they have to be 6 acres. And the rationale behind needing 6 acres is because the soccer fields, soccer teams, and the baseball teams want to play on this, they need some space. Well, we used to have the space here in town. We still have the space here in town. We're just not counting the space here in town. And it's to the detriment, and Brian and I agreed on this in our meeting this morning. It's to the detriment of our community that the city and the school district aren't playing nice. Now, to Savita's credit, she has said that they are trying to implement things. So, in my opinion, I think everybody needs to take a step back on these parks and rethink it in the next couple of months after there's some meetings and discussions, because there's a lot of green grass out there in the school facilities that should be part of the total system. Because Chris, you're exactly right. Where's the city going to get $20 million a year for this standard? Well, we have the standard. If you add in all these schools, and it's my bad, Chris, for not thinking about that earlier. So that's, sorry to get worked up, but I'm just so tired of these huge fees that we keep talking about.
Well, again, I guess the question, is obviously this is a huge funding gap, and um, we think if you're going to use the Mitigation Fee Act that you can charge above the standards, having a reasonable, reliable funding source to do that is fair if you're going to ask new development to contribute for that standard that they're not having.
Yeah, I might think a couple of things. One is, it would be good on the city side for us to determine what we think the existing level of service is, and if we concur with the 2.83. I do agree that there are funding obligations that are required. I don't think you have to have I don't think there's anything that says you have to have a kind of dedicated sales tax or what have you to do it, but you do have to have that commitment and the belief that you can do it. And that is certainly something that I think the city council will need to kind of think about and answer, both on this point, but also, as you said, on the recreational facility side.
Right.
Okay, anything else on that particular matter?
So I guess, I mean, one of the things that would be helpful, um, from a totality perspective, since Major M's been out there, how much of the Major M funds have been towards, enhancing parks and kind of, that city dedicated funding source, is that $1 million a year? What's it been kind of clipping off to, from perspective, I guess that'd be something to think about, as again, that is a dedicated source. It's got lots of other authorizations too, but there has been some history of doing that. So, and again, I want to acknowledge that there are things out there. I don't think it gets to the order of magnitude we're talking about, but there are things that have been done. So just to balance that, if you guys have some, I tried to look online, I couldn't get a quick total of what has been done historically. There's lots of projects listed, but I couldn't get numbers to do that. But I did get the current CIP, and I think there was, again, 225 was the number in there for this year, which is something, but again, not the 20 million a year that is kind of being assumed here.
Chris, your comment is noted. I won't speak for parks and recreation in particular, but there are both local funds as well as state and federal funds, that the Parks and Rec Department has been sourcing and seeking. As a matter of fact, on the De Caloris Park, the Parks and Recreation and Housing Department were able to land, I believe it was an $11 million grant. And so there are grant funding sources that the city is sourcing and has been successful in. But your comment is noted.
No response to the school district facilities as joint use?
Tom, your comment is noted.
Thank you. And as a grant, Play for All got $1.7 million, so another grant source.
I think, Chris, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think this page covers that conversation we just had, unless I'm missing something.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next, all three of those covered that conversation. That's what I thought too.
Okay.
Okay, moving on.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
You wanna, well, this is about park cost.
okay. So in 2022, it was $500,000 an acre. This did not include soft costs. So basically, the Parks and Rec Master Plan identified $500,000, didn't identify what the actual cost was. And subsequently, I was told it was only the actual construction cost. It doesn't include design, environmental, anything like that. So we have outlined on the website what soft costs are, and they are based upon what the costs that city staff, when they produce a project, what their costs are for design, environmental, construction inspection, if we have to do any geotech or, surveying, if you need any, you also have the construction contingency. So basically, the results of the cost, the construction cost going to $850 for neighborhood parks and 900,000 for community parks was based upon basically the city of Vacaville Parks and Rec folks went out to other agencies and comparable parks. They specifically asked them, hey, can you tell me how much it's costing you to, when you put a park out to bid, how much the actual project is, what the project is. And based upon that, they determined that that's what the costs were. That information is actually on a write-up in the city website. Nemo can go into that at a future time. He was the one who actually went through and contacted all the agencies, and he works for Parks and Rec. So I think that's pretty much answering.
Yeah, and I think I do would acknowledge the city and I think a couple different iterations since we started did bring the cost down. So I do want to obviously note that the city did look at that based on some of the chatter in the beginning of this review process. But we did go out and survey from our builder clients, some of which are on the phone, who are actually building these parks, and these were their all-in cost, including all the things that you mentioned. So when we looked at that and kind of brought them kind of closer to 700,000 versus the 1.2. So again, that's just a data point. And if you build them at 700,000, your deficit's a lot smaller. So that's a win-win.
Well,
We could do
yeah,
that.
and so one of the things that the city has in their policies, and so, and keep in mind, I'm not a Parks and Rec person. I am a Public Works person and transportation. So I kind of know Parks and Rec and stuff through this process. So I might not speak 100% correctly, but we basically have a policy in our general plan for turnkey parks. The city is, my understanding, looking towards doing more turnkey parks, because honestly, we as an agency have a lot more rules and guidelines and those types of things, and developers can build certain things quicker and cheaper than a city can. So that's acknowledged, and the city is looking at those types of options in the future for Parks and Rec. So
Just to
okay.
add a little bit more to that, Chris, one of the policy options that the city is presenting to the city council is just that, a focus on turnkey parks, acknowledging that the development community can and typically has been able to construct these parks at a lesser amount. So that is something we're putting specific focus on in the policy directive of the presentation to council next week.
Thank you.
Okay, so then the next one is the cost of a paper lot for a park. So the $250,000 in the 2022 diff actually came from the Parks and Rec Master Plan. I was not part of that master plan. I do not know where that number came from. Basically, what we chose to do was what a paper lot in Solano County would cost. A paper lot is basically, you got your street improvements, curb, gutter, and sidewalk in front of your park, and it's how much it costs per acre. And there is a write-up on the website for that. So
Yeah, I think we were pretty darn close, kind of within order of magnitude. We just wanted to note the calculation was a little bit different, but I mean, I think
Correct.
there's bigger fish to fry on this than that.
Yes, there are. Okay, 2022, okay. Mentioned had been acquired in 2022. Okay, so this one is just a noting. From 2022, we didn't have any regional park acquisition. For the first go around, it was mistakenly put in. It was pointed out, actually by Parks and Rec and stuff. I was the one who actually put it in, but that's because I'm not a Parks and Rec person. And then it was pointed out by Nemo of, no, we don't need to have that because we're fully, we're good with regional parks, so it was taken out. So that's why we have it
Okay.
noted. Okay. So the next one is,
Just before we leave, any other questions on those? Okay,
Nothing.
all right, moving on.
okay, so this is about the cost of the acquisition. Summarize the cost of the construction.
I think that first one is just summarizing the stuff we just talked
Okay,
All right, this would, if those comments were accepted, that would, reduction in
Okay.
order of magnitude.
okay. Next one. Okay, so first question is why were 5 facilities included? Honestly, I don't know. I'm probably the only person standing from when we did the development and Typheon. When we did the development impact fee that started in 2016. Typheon, by the time I took over the entire development impact fee, because I was only in charge of my traffic, that decision had already been made, and Typheon was actually hired somewhere shortly before I actually took the entire thing over. So we do not have that institutional knowledge of why only 5 were included. It was a decision that was made at the time. And so basically when we went through it this time, so the Parks and Rec master plan identifies 14 facilities. If the city wants to actually construct those 14 facilities, they really need to know what the real costs are. And so we brought these forward so that city council would have the entire total cost of what those facilities were and what that meant for an impact to not only the development impact fee, but also to what the city's contribution was in light of where we were with what was needed to be built. So it's basically, what we brought through the city council initially was the maximum justifiable fees, because as staff, we're not the ones who make policy decisions. We follow policy decisions that are laid out in the general plan, master plans, specific plans, etc. And so for us to arbitrarily make decisions as to what should be included or not, that's not really our role. Our role is to provide council all of the information and for them to then make the policy decision as to where we're going to be going. And then the last one is about how to fund the 70%. The allocation, the city continues as projected.
Yeah, and that ties back into your earlier point, right, Chris?
Yeah.
About
Yeah, and I think one of the things that dawned on me too is the comment about the population. If you use kind of the population versus the 2022, it changes from 70-30 to 72-28, right? Because it shifts those things a little bit. That was the purpose of the population not being brought forward to 2025, because you did have population growth without investment, so that shifts the obligations. So that was the point of anchoring the population in current time to true up the 70-30, but the order of magnitude is still whopping. And I had this great analogy about a large pizza, where you ordered a large pizza and you guys are going to have 7 slices and we're 3, and you took our pizza money, came back with 3 slices and ate our pizza with the rest of the city. And it's like, well, you should provide your own pizza money. And so that was, kind of our big picture here is that there's just again, we're getting close to $400 million by our estimate of obligations. And if the city wants to do that and wants to charge us for our share, they really need to have a path to do that, or we end up with three slices of pizza that everybody's eating. So again, I think we've heard that, and I think we really want to hear from the city council on their plan to do that.
Chris, just a little bit more in terms of the number of facilities that are being brought forward. As you know, Typhoon and Gwen just went through the Nexus study in April, listed the full Parks and Rec master plan, the 14 facilities. And as you may be aware, I'm sure you know that the Parks and Rec director is recommending to the city council on Tuesday, as we presented in the July 15th meeting, that the 14 facilities is being honed down to 8 total facilities. Total of 6 facilities in their entirety is being removed from this DIF cycle. So that will be something that will be going before council as a recommendation from the Parks and Rec director.
Okay, thank you.
And the next one talks about the 2022 DIF facility costs for the 2025. So in the 2022 Parks and Rec master plan, unfortunately, the cost that they had in it was just construction costs. It didn't include soft costs. So basically, how we got from the 2022 to the 2025 costs is we took the 2022 costs, we basically inflated them from, I think the Parks and Rec master plan was adopted in like 2021. And so the estimates for probably 2020. So they were inflated, number one. And then number two, the soft cost of 40% was added onto that. And it was also discussed quite extensively at the July 15th hybrid meeting, which is recorded and available on the website, city's website.
Okay.
Okay. The next one, basically, let's see.
We all good on this?
I think we're good.
I think we're good.
Yep.
Okay. Very good. Moving on.
Okay. All right. Okay. City cannot find their fair share of new similar alternative methods, blah, blah, blah.
I think we're good on that one too. I mean, I think
Okay, that one, yeah.
been
Okay.
a lot of
All right.
concessions on that.
Okay, then the fire station, 72 and 74, when we went through this process of including that, we wrote up a justification. The justification should have been attached to what was sent to you, which is a whole, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
3 pages
I
or
think
something like that.
my colleague Matt has a clarification on the calculation, so I'm not letting
Okay.
that this one.
Yeah, so I think when we looked at the table for the existing service level, both station 72, which was proposed to be remodeled, and 74 were both included in their entirety and at the current cost to determine our fair share of what we need to build. But then later it's then added back in again as our fair share. So I think we're being double counted there on this relocation remodel costs.
So let me
Yeah.
just do this.
But-
Go
I
ahead,
think
Typhoon.
I just gonna, yeah, no, I think it's a good question, Matt. So I think what we're attempting to do here is to basically say, hey, there's an existing, as you obviously picked up on, there's an existing level of service in the city that new development should meet. And then the concept is beyond that, there's actually a kind of a problem that both affects existing development, but also affects new development. And that involves and this is where I'll need your help, Gwen, but the kind of the location of the station, I believe. And so the idea is that we recognize that that's going above and beyond the existing service level, but it's an improvement that we think would enhance service to both new and existing development. And so we've treated that as like a new add-on facility, and then only given a proportionate share to new development. So that was at least the thinking behind why it shows up twice.
And when you say it shows up twice, the first part is we use it for the level of service to calculate future expansion on population, correct? That's
Right.
the first part. Yeah. Okay. And then the second part is the
Paying for it.
8.3 million, $3 million.
It's used in the calculation to determine that we need to build, or fund 14,000 square feet. But then it comes back in again and we pay our 40% share of the relocation and remodel. So I think either in the existing facility, it needs to be either the value reduced, because if we have to remodel something, obviously shouldn't be valued as new. And if we have to relocate something, it's not probably appropriate to be valued as new as well. So I just think that it should be kind of one place or the other. Is kind of our comment there.
Yeah, no, I think I'm struggling to try to disentangle the two clearly, given the nature of and purpose of the facility. But I hear what you're saying, Matt, and I think we should take a look at that a little bit more as my instinct.
And then our next comment is that, we're seeing actual construction costs closer to 1,100, not 1,675. And
So basically what we did is when we started this process, because we had, construction costs that were old, we went to LCA consultants who are architects and basically said, this is what we have. Can you update our cost estimates? And, this is what they provided us, and it's shown, I'm positive it's on the website with regards to different facilities have different costs. So police and fire have a higher cost because they're safety and they need different things than if you're just doing a city hall expansion. So, our costs are, we've showed you our costs.
yeah, and our comment is that we're building stuff now in other areas for 75 cents on the dollar. And I know one thing, if you put in the Nexus study, your bid will be above that. So
Yeah, and see,
we're fading
developers
that
can
one.
build cheaper.
These are city-led stuff. These aren't developer stuff. This is all city stuff. But okay.
Okay, so that's the fire facilities, police facilities. Basically we say, blah, 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 is currently provided by city. Okay, that just
We're
sort of
good on
comment
that.
noted.
Yeah.
I think we move on to the next page.
All good?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, and then the construction costs for the first one for police facilities, the construction costs, same thing. It's our cost estimates from the consultant that we have from May of 2024 that we posted. So, do you have any comments, or can I move on?
I think we can move on.
Okay. All right. Courtyard facilities, expansion courtyard, it's basically comment noted. The second courtyard facility one is basically the cost estimates that came from LCA consultants. And then the last one here, as noted, facilities.
Is this the one about the soft costs? Is that?
It's the last one. Yeah, let's see. It is correct that the Nexus Study does not include the stuff. Oh, okay. Oh, yes. This is the facilities, court facilities soft cost that we had discussed. Typhion, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, I
talk
think
about
that's
that?
yeah, no, it's a good observation. Remember the table correctly. The way the math works is when we're doing the new facility, right? We added on the soft cost, but for the valuation of the existing facilities, we didn't include the soft costs, which, and I could see an argument for including the soft costs. I did also just kind of point out that I think there's two sets of existing pieces. There's the existing campus that remains and the existing campus we lose. So we would, I think, to be consistent, add soft costs onto both of them. So I'm not sure what that would, how much that would change the fee or if it would bring it down. But I think if that was important, we could add in those soft costs to those two categories.
Yeah,
Reasonable.
I think our comment was there was the replacement of a city hall facility that the table nets out of our cost obligation. And that didn't have soft costs. So it was roughly $11 million. If you added 40% onto that, you would be netting off, a larger amount off of our obligation. But since we didn't put the 40% on there, it's only 11. So I think it would have reduced. Now, I'm not sure about the adding 40% to the existing facilities, but this was just on the kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I think to be consistent, to be consistent, we would add on, at least
For
my
both.
instinct would be to add on 40% and then see how it plays out, just so we treat them both the same. But I definitely get your point. Sorry.
Craig, do you have a comment up there?
More of a question. We in the industry don't take one bid from anyone. So why is LCA Consultants the only company that's providing cost estimates?
They're who we have on call. I mean, this is what they do. They do a lot of facilities. We typically don't go out to multiple folks to provide cost estimates for us of, they have a pool to choose from. So they choose from their bigger pool of their experience. And so basically how we do cost estimates for transportation is we look at what other agencies get for bids and such. They basically did the same thing for us. So we didn't see the need to go out to multiple consultants to say, can you go and research the bids for other facilities?
Well,
We're not bidding the project, Greg.
no, I understand that, but if we're basing it on one consultant's bids and we're approaching you with the fact that these numbers are extraordinary, and from our perspective, why wouldn't you, in order to back up your assertions?
Your comment is noted. The LCA is a vendor who does that. That is their purpose, is to go out and look at that pool of bidding and those costs. And so, to Gwen's point, that was the vendor that we've been utilizing to provide these figures. Your comment is noted. Okay. So where are we at? We good on?
Yeah, I think we're getting close to the end here.
All the way down on, we finished up with courtyard facilities?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna move on then.
Okay, so this is the green belt. And basically our costs were escalated using the construction index costs to get to 9,500 per acre. As a point of comparison, the housing price index, another approach to inflation, would have increased the land prices above the 9,500 an acre. So I don't know if Typhoon, you want to add any more onto that?
No, I mean, it does look like we both escalated the costs and you came up with something a fair amount lower. So it feels like we must have ended up with different escalation factors. But I'm not sure.
If you guys have the escalation factors you guys used and share them, because I think there was another spot earlier back in the questions that it seemed like we had both escalated, but we were off a little bit. So it'd be nice just to double check.
Yeah, are you using construction? What are you using, Matt or Chris, on that? Are you using construction cost index or?
Yeah, I think we were using CCI.
And again, I think we listed the index in our comment letter. We gave it going back to 2018 and just
okay
our stuff. And so we use that. And I guess our last comment, which is a little bit of a if we've noted that there was dated cost estimates in the 22 document that would go back to 2018. We knowingly let permits out of the door without the proper costs, and so that creates a funding shortfall. And again, that's another, the numbers aren't comparable to the parks and that kind of stuff, but there's a shortfall that's been created by under collection. So it's just noting that if you under collect today, you can't collect it tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's we definitely we recognize, and that's obviously why the cost estimates that we use are really important here. To your point, if we don't charge enough, then we can't make it up. And that's something that happened in that period. So that's agreed, acknowledged.
Okay. Lisa, I think we've used about half the time. I know that there's probably a robust conversation on other infrastructure, so I'll yield back time to Mike and his group.
Sounds good.
Okay. Moving on.
Moving on.
Figure it probably makes sense to go through traffic next.
So this is the last page. This was 8. We good?
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think all that's kind of the math of it, but I think we've hit the points all together. So yeah.
Okay.
The traffic one?
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense.
Okay. So the first one points to the drop in EDUs, which we talked about. Basically, it was Lagoon Valley. So I think we're good on that. We can move to the next one. Road widenings. Okay. Okay. Let's see. For the TIF, road widenings were identified in the general plan. Intersection improvements were based upon the TIF analysis. Basically, for the general plan, they did do, whenever you do a general plan, you basically do travel demand forecasting and modeling to determine what your roadway size is. So while it's not done as part of the traffic impact fee, it is done as part of the general plan. Then basically the traffic impact fee says, okay, if I have these roadways that are a 4-lane, a 4-lane and a 4-lane coming together, how many left turn lanes do I need? Do I need a right turn lane, etc.? And that comes out of the specific modeling of both the travel demand forecasting modeling and then the synchro based upon level of service. From there, you get how big your project is. And we follow basically general plan policies of level of service clearly identified. We lay out the roadway projects and we lay out the intersection projects. They're on the website. And then basically we use using, our unit costs or however big the project is, we figure out how much units of like asphalt, how much units of a median and stuff like that. And then from there, we use our unit costs, which are developed from, comparable agencies and stuff. And actually, sorry, the Stockton, Manteca, and Caltrans, apologize, that was old. We updated it to Solano County and projects that were delivered in Solano County to be more local, and that was a comment that was made very early on, and so we made that adjustment. But then from there, we use the unit cost to develop, our total projects, and then the unit costs showing the day the reduction. Okay, so for the single family, when we actually looked at the unit cost modification for a 2,500 square foot single family home, the unit cost or the EDU cost was dropped by $193. That's where we got to the current cost. And then basically just noting when we did our estimates in March of like the spring of 2019 to July of 2025, the California Construction Cost Index has 54%. So I think you said something about it being, 52% or something like that. So I went on my little monologue. Do you have any questions?
I think we had compared it to like an ENR adjustment. Construction cost, it was about 57%. I know that sometimes the Caltrans index can be pretty volatile based on the number of projects that are bid and constructed every year. So you can see big swings and up or down depending on what's happening any given year with the Caltrans index. So yeah, we just weren't sure that, you saw the substantial increase from 2022 to 2025. We just weren't sure, how that new baseline was established in the 2025 update.
Got it. Okay, so you've got deferred project costs. You say despite we have a $41 million balance as of June of 2024, there are still projects that are included in the 1992 diff. persistent deferrals, increased costs. The city should reevaluate projects. And, basically look at level of service or some other possibilities of, what we can do different. So, so while we have a balance, the majority of the funds are already allocated to specific CIPs that are in progress. And while it may appear like the projects are deferred, the design and ultimate construction of capital improvement projects require like multiple stages of planning, environmental review, right-of-way acquisition, utilities. So if you're dealing with the facility on Caltrans facility, like, the Lagoon Valley, Vaca Valley 505 improvements, we're dealing with Caltrans. It takes forever. We have to do CEQA, we have to do NEPA, it's that whole thing of what we're required to do as an agency. You guys are required to do the same thing as if you have an improvement that is on a Caltrans facility that you're responsible for. And basically, we can't deliver a project in a year. Like a project like the Vaca Valley 505 improvements, it's going on multiple years because of the fact that you have to have your pre-engineering, you have to have figure out what your area of influence is, go through all your environmental documentation, go through Caltrans with all of the roadway improvements, etc. So some of these projects take a really long time to move forward, and we only have so much money, so you have to prioritize where you spend it. So eliminating facilities that don't have a level of service issue, as I said, the 2015 general plan did a traffic impact study to determine what the roadway sizing should be. The actual TIF then took that roadway sizing and analyzed, what the turn lane should be. That's all laid out. Legacy projects.
Gwen, on that last point, in looking at the overall Nexus study, we understand that there are projects identified as part of the overall general plan. But based on the methodology in the Nexus study, whether it gets funded through the impact fee program, appears to be that it's triggered based on certain level of service thresholds being met.
It's triggered upon when it's needed. So like, for instance, Lagoon Valley was approved, I think in 1994 was when it was approved. Nothing was done until just 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, because things started to happen. So we didn't spend any time or effort down there. So it depends upon where development happens and where we choose to do improvements. And as you know, our fees, when we collect fees, we always lag. So we have the development that shows up, and we're still collecting the fees to be able to go through and get through the entire process of the project. So,
yeah, I think our point is when you look at one of the tables in the Nexus study, there are certain capital improvement projects that, at an existing level of service, they're fine. With new development being triggered, they still meet the city's level of service threshold, but then are then assume that improvements need to be made even though the level of service thresholds aren't being triggered. And so, it appears that there are certain facilities, even with new development occurring, aren't going to get to a level of service E or F, and therefore aren't really needed at this point in time, based on the projections in the traffic model and the level of service calculation.
Okay, so let me give you an example. So Vaca Valley, from, what is it? From Browns Valley Road all the way east, to I-5. So that section is a 4-lane road. So while there is Allison Drive that doesn't trigger a threshold for a traffic signal is put in there because it's needed for appropriate spacing. It will probably meet signal warrants. So you can have a signal that is operating acceptably, but meets signal warrants. So we put that in. The road's going to be widened. We put that in that particular signal location because it's anticipated that it will need a signal per signal warrants in the future. So that's one specific location. Most most other locations, I think every other location meets our threshold of being unacceptable. It is a little confusing because our acceptable level of service is mid-D. So you can have some intersections that operate acceptably at a D, but some intersections that operate unacceptably at as a D. It depends upon how much delay they have. So if you're in the first half of the delay of a D, that's acceptable. If you're in the second half, the more delay as part of a D, that's unacceptable. So that also gets a little confusing too. So.
Okay.
Okay. So legacy projects. See, we made a project. Okay. So, basically the city is not, there's many projects that haven't been constructed for over 30 years, violation of the Fee Mitigation Act's and Nexus requirement. We, the city, have completed numerous projects associated with the DEF. In the purpose of the 2022 and 2025 update is, basically, well, the 2022 was to update the needs of the city based upon the general plan that was approved in 2015 and the new growth allocation that happened because of that. So I'm going to move on.
Yeah,
So
no,
stop
I
me.
think, no, I think, Gwen, that to us, the biggest driving factor of the fee calculation for traffic is related to legacy projects.
Mhm.
You have a set of improvements that have been in the program for 30 years. They haven't been completed, which, brings up the question as if traffic volumes have increased for the last 30 years and these facilities have not been constructed, it really gets to the underlying premise of the Nexus study that it shows that there's no need for those facilities based on the traffic volumes.
So
And
basically,
I think our other concern, Gwen, as well, is that these facilities continue to be assigned to new development at a very high percentage, 100%. And if, our opinion, we think that every new Nexus study should go through an updated cost allocation, that at some point over the last 30 years, new development has become existing development, and there should be a proportional allocation of these legacy projects to existing development. And it's not appropriate to continue to assign these things at 100% or close to 100% for these legacy projects. What you're doing is these costs keep going up dramatically. The denominator keeps getting smaller, which just drives astronomical increases to the traffic fee program.
so just
And
one
Mike,
comment.
can I interject on that? The worst project that the city has ever proposed is the California Drive extension. The city has been collecting money on that for 33 years. So to your point, Mike, it is definitely, they've collected, by my estimate, somewhere in the 20-30 million dollar range. That, yes, was paid to other projects. I get it. There's no cup there where there's $20 million, but they collected fees on all the other development in Vacaville for the last 30 years over that project, and they will not take it out of the fee schedule.
Okay.
It's ridiculous.
All right. Thanks, Tom. I'm going to jump in on this, Mike and Tom. We discussed this at the July 15th meeting, and Tom, you were there. We had conversation about it. Mike?
Yeah, when are you going to take it out, Brian? When are you going to take out that piece of garbage project?
Hey, let's be professional here.
I can't be because you're not being. That is fraud. You got mad when I said it before. That project is fraud.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. This is being recorded, by the way, and we will make sure that it gets up onto the city's website. Mike, to your point regarding legacy projects, there are 6 traffic projects that the city has identified in this cycle, including California Drive, Midway Road widening. What was the other one, Gwen?
Back Valley Extension.
Back Valley Extension. Those are the 3 big ones. And then we have some others, Gibson Canyon, et cetera. There's 6 total projects that in this cycle, this department stepped back, took a look at it, and reduced the scope of work, substantially reducing the level of responsibility on the diff to the tune of over $112 million on California Drive and Back Valley, to understand, to go through a process to understand exactly what those benefits are there alternatives, run some scenarios, and do some preliminary engineering so that we can determine whether or not those projects are still needed in the TIF, in which we would bring that information back at a future cycle, a future DIF cycle, for the city council to understand those details. Again, $112 million. To Tom's point, California Drive is one of those projects that we considerably dropped in this cycle. And again, that was presented in the July 15th presentation as well.
Yeah, hey, Brian, is that because I know in the Nexus study, there was a calculation that showed the traffic fee should have been $41,000 per EDU, right? And then there was a few pages later, you had a section that talked about some of these offsets that were going to be applied to certain other roadway segments that then was reduced it down to the 27. Is that the same thing, or is this a
No.
different process?
So basically, as part of the actual traffic impact, the Nexus study and stuff, when we did it in 2022 and we just mirrored it in 2025, we basically, for California Overcrossing and Vaca Valley Extension, we took out the construction cost and we only included design and environmental for those two. There was assumptions for grant funding. There were some certain projects that were taken out. There's some benefit costs that how much it costs versus the benefit didn't make sense. There were I want to say it was like $30-40 million of interchange improvements. And we basically said that needs to be taken out. That's really a Caltrans facility or Caltrans responsibility. So that was all done prior to what Brian's talking about. These other projects, these 6 projects that were kind of, I want to say downsized, are that downsizing will be applied to the 27,000 change per single family EDU.
Okay. Yeah, it's just, you see these old legacy projects and you see these allocations to new development. And, at some point, fundamentally, it feels that you have to go through a more updated cost allocation for those facilities as 30 years of development have occurred. But appreciate you guys taking a look at those things, those other legacy projects and potential changes that could be implemented.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing, Mike, is taking this opportunity and recognizing, again, I see it looks like Tom's dropped off, but to the developers, position on these particular projects, these were brought up during the public meetings. Staff heard, I heard, the team went back and on those 6 projects, went through essentially a rescoping to be able to move forward with a process of analyzing those projects in a more detailed way and reducing them. Again, it comes out to $112,315,466. I mean, it's a substantial drop.
Yeah. I mean, those we added up those legacy projects and they account for almost $410 million, right? And at a gross, and then I know you guys applied some offsets for grants and some other things which reduced it, but to take another look at some of those and see how they might be able to scale down would be appreciated.
It looks like Gregory has had his hand up for a long time. Sorry about that. Do you have something to add? Maybe not. Okay. If you do, just jump in. Okay. So the next one, 3, is soft costs, which we talked about. We have a write-up on it.
Yep.
Number 4 is deficiencies. And, basically, there's a write-up on the website on how deficiencies are calculated. So there's 2 different types. There's one of if you have an intersection level of service deficiency, that's what's on the write-up on the website.
Okay.
Basically, if you have a bike ped project, it assumes a certain population it assumes that the existing population is also going to use it. So what happens is only a portion of the bike ped projects are applied to new development. And
Okay.
It's about 27% because that's, basically, where we were at with, and that's actually identified in the traffic study on page 1 of the traffic impact fee program. So
Is that based on like trip counts from new development?
it's based upon the travel demand forecasting model.
Okay.
And it outlines what it is and everything like
Okay.
that. Okay, so the next one is the $36 million of various ramps. That was the various ramp improvements that basically when we did the 2022 and we did the 2025, we just mirrored it in the 2025. We said, hey, we really shouldn't include these. These are not local improvements. These are Caltrans facilities. It's not well documented in the traffic section, and we will add that in there. Okay.
Yeah, and one of our comments just fundamentally is when you see something that's that opaque as just various off-ramp improvements, it's kind of hard to understand what you really mean. Is there really a need for various off-ramps? We don't know because there's no real level of service calculation showing that these things are being triggered based on new trip counts coming from new development. So that was kind of one of our comments as well.
Well, actually there are. So basically what it is that we needed certain ramp improvement, off-ramp improvements and such. And then what would happen is this off-ramp improvement based upon Caltrans requirement would require us to extend back this far. And oh, wait, that column to that bridge needs to be taken down because of the fact that it doesn't meet Caltrans standards unless we relocate it. And so it's like this whole domino effect that we went through at great nauseum in the 2022 traffic impact fee. And it was just like, this is like way too much. We just need to take those out. So at two of the locations, there's a lesser improvement at the ramp of what we could fit without having this massive project that because of meeting standards, et cetera, we would have to do.
Yeah, so it looks like the 36 million is included in the CIP. So are you saying you're going to remove that 36 million?
No. It's included in the large projects. It's already taken out. It's just not well documented.
Okay. It's a discrete component of some of the larger projects. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Reduction in funding for large projects. It's part of that $228 million that's on page 4 of the traffic impact fee. And like I said, they do a good job of talking about, California overcrossing, Vaca Valley extension, but that was left. That was inadvertently, the text for that was not included.
Okay.
So it's already taken out.
They're triggered for when these are needed. Is there that will put these off as to when they're needed?
So basically what we, Vacaville does, every agency does, is each year we go through our budgeting cycle. Okay. And each year we're like, okay, in Vaca Valley, my understanding is we budget based upon how much impact fee we actually have in hand, is my understanding. Other agencies do based upon projections. So basically the agency says, this is what I expect to have for next fiscal year. What are my priority projects based upon where development has happened, not like paper lots, but where people are actually built houses, built commercial, where's the biggest impact? And those are the projects that move forward. Typically what ends up happening is our level of service is unacceptable because everybody, the development, it happens that people build homes, the commercial happens, and we have to wait to collect fees before we can get through the whole process of the project. We can start a project, but we might, when we start the project, we potentially don't have the money to construct it unless it's a very small project and has a small timeline. But when you're talking about projects that have several years, 3, 4, 5 to get through the design and environmental process. And if you have any, bugs and bunnies, then it's like, it adds even more time. So basically, and we also look for grant funding for that. So it's not necessarily, it's a trigger of based upon where the need is. And we look at that every year when we go through the budgeting. And that's how the dollars are allocated to for traffic for specific projects.
So when a project is created in its origination, there should be a trigger, 4,000 people move in and use it. I'm just picking a number.
So basically that's a sensitivity analysis, but
but let me finish. I'm too ignorant to understand all the words. But if there's a trigger that means by a certain time or a certain event or a certain period, there's got to be so much money there for that particular project. And instead, I don't see any triggers. I see us collecting money on projects. And I went through the cup theory, so I understand, and it moves forward, but then there's no money left for these projects if there's a trigger that goes off, but I'm not seeing where some of these triggers are being pulled and using this money. So that's why I'm asking, what are the triggers on each one of these projects? I think it would be a good thing to know.
Rich, we appreciate your comment, and I do appreciate you remembering the lessons that we went through in terms of the allocation and the accounting on the diff. There are no triggers, and I appreciate your comment on that. That said, it's difficult to just as the developers have an issue in terms of markets coming up and coming down, which affects the amount of funding that goes into the diff categories or crashes or unforeseen circumstances. The city cannot project a specific year or month that we say that, hey, we're going to start construction of this particular project. To Gwen's point earlier, the TIF in particular is analyzed every single year. The amount of funding in the particular TIF budget is analyzed every single year. And those allocations of those funds are made to the most priority projects and the projects that can move forward with the available funding. And then every year, per the Fee Mitigation Act, the City of Vacaville produces a diff report. That diff report meets the threshold of the mitigation fee 5-year report. We do that every single year. So again, there is no triggers. I understand what you're looking for, but that is not something that the city can effectively and operationally make happen.
Question, and I know that Tom, he gets awfully upset over these things.
What was that?
I said, I know that Tom gets awfully upset over these things, and we lost him. And yeah, but I have a question. If one of these large projects, something said we need them today or tomorrow or in the next year or so, is there going to be money there for them to be done? We've been collecting money on them since '92, but will there be funds there if the population or any of these things, levels of service, demand that they get done?
So my response to that, Rich, would be just as I went through earlier, and Mike and I were exchanging conversation about those particular the 3 big projects, and then the additional 3, so the total of 6. Again, that is just so that everybody's on the same page. And again, this will be presented to City Council. It is the California Drive Overcrossing, Back Valley Extension, Midway Road Widening, Nut Tree Road Overcrossing, Gibson Canyon Road, and Monte Vista Widening. All 6 of these projects, the department has taken a step back and said, hey, we need to analyze these further. We're going to reduce the scope, and in some cases on the Nut Tree Overcrossing, for example, essentially that project was to widen that overcrossing. We took out almost $62 million worth of project responsibility in the diff on that and reduced it substantially so that only the intersections are improved. In total, again, $112 million in project scope reductions so that the department can go through a process of analyzing these projects and determining whether or not they move forward. Again, they've been reduced significantly in this cycle. And when we have that information during the next diff cycle, the city council would be presented with the details as to whether or not these projects move forward or not. Hopefully that
If your analysis comes back sooner showing that, maybe some of these can be dramatically reduced in scope or eliminated or pushed out to the future, basically not eliminated, but pushed out to the future. Would you guys do another update to the Nexus study, to the traffic portion of it, to reduce the fees that was determined?
Might that be a decision, on for somebody above me at a future
Okay.
date? Yeah, I can't predict the future. I guess what I'm trying to indicate right now is we've had six public meetings. I have heard the passion, that Tom and Rich have iterated during these meetings. And we took steps. Particular, to the traffic impact fee, to make these, proactive moves, to go out there and try to get some real information that allows us to be able to move forward. And in this cycle, reducing the scope of work and the diff responsibility significantly to the tune of over $112 million.
Yeah, and I understand that goes up the chain of command in terms of a decision like that. The work that you're going to be doing, looking at those facilities, does that require an update to the existing travel demand model, or would you just use the existing travel demand model you have?
Our travel demand model needs to be updated.
Okay.
Because it's all the post-COVID stuff and such.
Okay.
Are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Have we answered all of these, or are we moving on to?
No, we're on
10?
number 7.
Number
Okay, so
7.
basically, the fee actually identifies locations where we anticipated traffic signals will be needed. They're all locations that are 4 lanes and 4 lanes coming together. There's 4 lanes each, actually 2 lanes per approach. And basically it's an all-way stop sign now. They don't meet signal warrants, but when you put more traffic on there, they will probably meet signal warrant. Well, high probability. This is our best estimate of where it's going to be. And these roads of, that they put in an all-way stop sign. It's fine for a certain level of traffic, but then you get so much traffic that it becomes an unacceptable level of service. And then it warrants a traffic signal. And there's, I think, 9 different warrants that you could have for traffic signals. So that's basically how those came up. And I think there's probably about 18 of them. Then on top of it, we assumed that that new development would fund 80% of it and the city would fund 20%, because we understand that there are some, if it stays as is, it's fine as an all-way stop sign. But when you actually make it, when you add more development and it meets signal warrants and you really need to actually signalize it for various reasons, it's really a developer thing. But we acknowledge that there is some sort of contribution that the city needs to make towards those. That's standard operating procedures per my traffic consultants, DKS, who do numerous ones of these of traffic impact fees. Same thing with speed mitigation fees. Is new development creates speeding issues, cut through neighborhoods. It develops, this is a small pot of money, and it's, as you can see, it's a relatively small pot of money.
Yeah.
That is basically to address some of those issues of, I didn't have this development here, now I do, and now I have speeding through these local residential streets, especially with issues, or not issues, but apps like Way that make everybody find the best path, and traffic is like water. They go to the path of least resistance. Then the last one.
Gwen, I think we just have a kind of have a common theme on some of these questions or comments that, you look at the analysis, it doesn't look like some of these things are being triggered, or there's no very specific identification of where, when, and how much each of these individual costs. And so, our concern is that, maybe new developments being charged for stuff that really isn't needed at this time. And that's just somewhat of a concern.
Well, so there is.
A new traffic study soon?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said, Rich. You're kind of muffled.
New traffic study? Is that on the books?
Traffic study for what? They do traffic studies all the time at the city.
Well, the last major traffic study was done, 10 years ago?
I think he's talking
No.
about, I think he's talking about the model.
The model, yeah.
So the model was updated in the base year 2016 and stuff was the last time it was updated. So and that gets to Mike's question of when we go through and reevaluate those, the 6 projects and do the sensitivity analysis if they're needed or not, the model will be updated for that, the travel demand forecasting model. And basically, there's different methodologies of how to pull the data, etc. And now there's a lot more data that's available through like streetlight data, etc. So I'm gonna move on to the next comment. And actually, what I was gonna say is for the traffic signals and also the speed mitigation, we do have cost estimates for them. Actually, the traffic signals, it's basically the cost of just putting in a signal without any turn lanes or anything like that. So it's not assuming that you need, extra right of way, extra pavement or anything like that. It's basically the cost of the traffic signal. And for the speed mitigation, we assumed like median costs and stuff like when I say median, like a median down the road cost and such. But those are actually identified as like, hey, this is what we're using for that. The last one is how do cost allocations align with the current and projected traffic volumes? I'm not really sure how to answer that other than basically we take the roadway sizing from the 2015 general plan. The general plan is the Bible of like, what the city is, where the land use is going to be, and thus where the traffic impacts are going to be. The number of lanes is basically analyzed through that whole big process and the traffic evaluations. And then basically, we talked about the intersections are evaluated per level of service, turning movement counts, etc. Because, when you get to an intersection, you need some left turns, right turns, traffic signals, etc. And then basically that's how we develop our costs. So
yeah, I think this maybe even goes back to the legacy projects where you may have some traffic volumes on these legacy projects where existing development is the lion's share of the traffic volume along some of these legacy projects, but costs are being allocated to new development at a percentage that's above and beyond what their traffic volumes might show in the traffic model, so to speak. And so that's probably more in line with what we're talking about.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Thank you. So this is an example like Browns Valley Parkway from Vaca Valley Parkway down to Brown Street. The right of way is there, and there's 2 lanes of travel, and someday that road will be widened. What determines when that gets done?
So basically what ends up happening is, every year when we look to see how much money we have, because some years are better than others, everybody knows, 2008 or 2009 wasn't a very good year. Other years were much better. We look to see how much money we have available and then determine what are our needs, our highest needs. My understanding is the city is moving forward with Browns Valley Road with regards to starting to invest some money so that we can actually, go through the design and, whatever else we need. I don't know what we need on environmental and then ultimately construct it. So that project has been moved into the pipeline. And as everybody knows, agencies always lag with their money that they collect money, but they have to have enough money to actually move the project a phase forward before they can actually move forward. So I don't know if Brian wants to add on to that.
Yeah, I will just say that, Todd, we are, as Gwen had said, it is being moved into the pipeline. There is a work starting to be generated on that project.
It's really just comes down to a funding issue. It's not a function of, okay, we need to do this now, so let's go do it. You have to have the money to do it, obviously. So
that's the problem is we need to do a lot now and we don't have all the money to do it now. Like if we went and said, oh, we're going to bond for this and then, have the residents pay back the bond or something like that. I mean, that's the way you can move it forward, but you have to be able to have that mechanism in place. And agencies are notorious that we lag the funding to be able to build a project before it's needed. Now, there are specific agencies that, like Elk Grove with Lagoon Valley, no, not Lagoon Valley, Laguna Ridge, that they actually made the developers put in the infrastructure before all the houses went there. But then what happened is the market tanked and you had these 4 and 6 lane roadways, beautiful, and there was just the high school there. There was like no houses or anything like that. So.
It's like a speedway out there.
Oh yeah, it was for a while. Now it's very developed. It's, nice and great and stuff, but it was a ghost town for a long time.
Okay, we good?
I think we're good. Do you guys have any more questions for traffic?
Nope.
Okay.
We're good.
You want to do storm drain?
Okay.
Yeah, Brian, storm drain was pretty easy. I think you addressed some of the questions we had. Our biggest kind of the outstanding ones, we had done some research in terms of some of the cost estimates that we have been able to survey, and those seemed a little bit lower than what you guys were using in the Nexus study. But that was really the only main comment we had as it relates to the drainage fee.
But our cost estimates are low.
I wish.
So basically what we did for the cost estimates, and so for drainage is not my area of expertise. I know enough to be dangerous and such. So what we did is we actually had our cost estimates. We went out to Dewberry Consultants because they do a ton of different projects. They used to be Dennis, they used to be Hagelin Associates or something like that. They were bought by somebody else. Large company, they work for agencies, do a ton of agency work through design, through construction, etc. And so like LCA, they have access to a lot of, public agencies, cost to build, unit costs and such. And so they went through and updated costs for what it would cost for us to build it. And agencies always cost more than private developers to build it. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So I think we're probably good then, unless you want me to go through these real quick.
Yep, we're fine.
All right.
How about water and sewer?
Okay, I'm done. Woohoo.
Thank you, Glenn.
And I think it was Eric.
Yes, I'm here too with Justin. Did you want me to share the memo?
I think I've got the memo up. Right? The memo I have.
All right. Oh, sorry. I was looking at the wrong screen. Do you want to go through the response then okay, yeah. So sorry, 1 second. I just have it. So it seemed like there were 4 primary points in the memo, Builder Association memo. The first one was the allocation to expansion of expansion projects was not proportional to the estimated portion of expansion related EDUs at the horizon year. And our response is just, we're focusing only on projects that are adding new capacity. And so, it's not going to be proportional to the overall makeup of EDUs at the horizon year. It's going to be focused largely on projects that are benefiting new or creating new capacity. Those projects were allocated by the city's engineering staff review them, and rather than allocating the full amount to capacity to new development, if those projects also provided benefit to existing existing customers, is allocated only a portion to new development and a portion to the existing to benefit the existing customers in the system. So I guess that was our response to the first.
Yeah, Eric. I think we had saw that when you kind of take a step back and look big picture, future development accounts for a certain amount of demand that's going to be placed on the system, and which is less than that 50% allocation. And so it just we weren't sure where that or how that 50% allocation was determined. It felt like it was based on internal staff decisions and analysis. And so I think the comment would be, is it possible to get some more detail on how that 50% allocation worked or was determined, just so we have our ability to kind of vet it and understand it?
I think, and I'll have to double check on project by project. Some of the projects were more qualitative with that. It's benefiting new development, but it's also providing redundancy to the existing customers. So it's a benefit to those customers. So I think that's where something like 50/50 was used, because it is to expand capacity, but the fact that there's expanded capacity also provides a redundancy benefit to existing customers. So I think there were a couple projects where it was split on a more specific capacity number, but I'd have to double check. But I don't think all of the projects. I think it was more exercise of going through each project and discussing it with the internal team, rather than some of it's harder to quantify.
Yeah, understood. It just felt, when you see a number like 50%, it's like, that seems maybe it's a little arbitrary. And so we just wondering if there was some kind of a backup analysis that went through and kind of did really an analysis to look at, how these facilities should be allocated based on, demand demand characteristics between the future and existing. So that was it.
Okay. The next bullet point was basically feeding onto the first one, with the 50/50 seeming like it was not a calculated number. And yeah, so I think we already touched on the next point. With the flow factors, for the capacity charge study, we're focused on the factors that were used to basically develop all the projections of future demands, which drove the project assumption. So that's different than the rate study that was focused on the short-term usage in the next 1 to 5 years. If we changed the flow, the EDU, if you just changed it in the rate calculation, that would make it lower. However, if you went and what we need to do if we did that, we need to go back, go into the giant land use projection table and change those. And so you also need to lower the total use, which would be a smaller number to divide the value by, which would have a increasing effect on the rates. So it's kind of, making that change wouldn't necessarily result in a lower fee. And the reason we used those numbers were because they were the numbers used in the land use model. And there are a variety of different uses per EDU based on different land use types, and the 280 was below the average we rounded down the average of the use per EDU of the various residential land use types.
Yeah, and it's I think it's just an overall question I think you have this 280 gallons per day for water consumption, which I think is coming out of a master plan, which is fairly old, and then typically that 280 that goes into the old master plan is even more dated than that, and so it's trying to get. And I understand from a planning perspective, yeah, we want to be conservative in terms of the consumption and the planning of the facilities, but then we have this kind of connection fee nexus-based calculation that should be based on actual impacts on the system and actual demands. And obviously what we know is water is a scarce resource. Water consumption is dramatically changing in terms of how new residential units are consuming and utilizing water, both on the exterior and the interior of the house. And so what we're trying to get to is there a way to make a recognition of the smaller demand that new residential units are placing on the system, right? And so if that is something that's quantifiable due to meters, and we can actually show that, okay, well, an EDU from a single family detached unit built in 2025 is dramatically less than what one built in 1995 or 2005 or 2010 was. In my mind, that means that the existing system has a bunch of additional capacity. And so you could connect more users to the existing system where that would increase the denominator. Or conversely, if there is all this extra capacity because you have lower demands placed upon the system, then is there an argument that some of those future facilities actually start to drop off, or they can get deferred to a later date? And just trying to, how do we recognize that the interaction between, we've got a connection fee study going that you guys are preparing. We got Wildan preparing this other utility rate study, and we got these kind of different data points. And so, trying to take a step back and look at the big picture. I mean, it is relevant information that there's this other study out there that shows, residential units are, consuming less water. And that number in the utility rate is probably an average between old units and new and projected new units, which in my mind means the newer units are consuming even less than the 259. So just, maybe Brian, to you guys, long term, it's like, how do we recognize some of these demand changes and characteristics? I mean, I'll throw it out there. One of the things that we've seen with other water suppliers is that they've started to look at the connection fee based on lot size designation, that a 3,000 square foot house on a 10,000 square foot lot consumes substantially more water than an 1,800 square foot home on a 4,000 square foot lot. And there's ways and metrics that we can actually quantify those different impacts. And so I'm going to throw that out there if that's something the city would be open to investigating. That way it even starts to comply with AB 602, where you can start looking at, smaller units paying a smaller, connection fee because a smaller home is built on a smaller lot. So something to think about if that's a possibility. So I think it would really be beneficial to everybody involved to start looking at some of these things.
Does the city look at what, water usage is when it's evaluating what an EDU, what's being consumed? Is there a way to look at all the meter information and say, gee, 10 years ago, the city used X at this house and now it's using Y? I mean, that's a little too detailed, but how do you do that?
Well, I'll tell you, Todd, what I've seen happen is that with all the new meters, they can track meters by density classification, RD2, RD5, RD7, RD10. They can tell you kind of based on the meters in those zoning designations how much water is being consumed. So that kind of can start showing how it could be, how you could graduate, these impacts on the system based on higher densification, smaller lots, smaller homes, and those types of things.
Yeah.
That's the route development's going, Todd, right? We know it.
Yeah.
To build attainable housing, we're gonna build smaller lots, we're gonna build smaller homes and those types of things.
Sorry, Todd, I want to add to your question also to Mike's follow-up to Mike's answer. we've actually done rate study. So for agencies. So to answer your question is that the rate study that Willdan prepared should have that information. All we're saying is that there's got to be some way to reconcile the connection fee with these factors with the flow rates that Willdan has reviewed. Okay, so I guess that is we're not unfamiliar with how these things are done. We've actually prepared them, and so it's just one of the recommendations that we have because what we've noticed is that the 2022 and the 2025 fee study references or uses the same factors, and I would be inclined to even ask, or I'm curious as to what these factors were before 2022. I believe that the fee study references the master plan, and the master plan, as Mike has already said, I believe it's since 2018, and that data in the 2018 master plan is even older. So we got to have some kind of reconciliation between these two factors especially when the rate study and the fee connection study are both being prepared at the same time.
I think that's a point to note for the city and our from our perspective, the city's been master plans are expensive undertakings, and you don't want to do that on a overly frequent basis. I think the city does it at pretty reasonable intervals, and when we're looking at the development chart or capacity charges, we're basing those on the factors used to develop, to make the projects, to identify the projects and the capacity sizing and the future demand. And as I said before, there's I'm sure when the next master plan is done, if those numbers are lower, then the overall projected demand will be lower, which there's a balancing effect of you have a lower amount per lower EDU assumptions, that you have a lower overall demand assumption, which would one has an upward pressure, one has a downward pressure on the fee calculation. So
let me just add one thing. So from the 2022 to 2025, the main purpose, there were two purposes, is one, to deal with the fact that the COVID supply chain and inflation costs that we were just getting beat up on, and two, to right size a few things for Parks and Rec. So that's why they're using all of the 2022 information and data, because if for light traffic, I'm assuming utilities is similar. If we went back and we redid everything, it's an extensive and very expensive process. So that's all I have to say. I just wanted to chime in on that. Thank you.
Hey, Gwen, that's a good point. And I think, is there a way to, without going back and doing, any heavy lifting on some of these things, is there a way that we could do a connection fee that calculates the cost for a single EDU that's based on a 280 gallons per day demand factor? And then as more dense land uses come forward, and there's data out there that shows, hey, if you're building an RD7 or an RD10, your gallons per day factor is 200 gallons per day. So you're a fraction of an EDU, right? And so you would have a lower connection fee. Is that something that you guys would be willing to do? I don't know if you necessarily have to do it in the connection fee study, but maybe in the resolution or some of the implementation ordinances that would adopt it. Maybe you could do something like that. Is that something you guys would be interested in looking at?
Justin, do you happen to have any comment on that?
No, and I was going to clarify. So you're basically saying to use a fraction of an EDU for smaller footprint house sizes, in essence?
Yes, when the apartments, and it's smaller. You've got a lot of units on a side piece of land. Now we're trying to do workforce housing, and we're maximizing the building envelope and minimizing the lot coverage.
And I believe our fee structure does address some of that to encourage some of those smaller buildings by giving a discounted, I shouldn't say discounted, a reduced EDU factor to those homes.
Oh, perfect. I didn't see that in the connection fee study, so
Yeah, and there's like there's a range of square footages associated with it. And I don't have those off the top of my head.
Justin, do we have that whether it be on your website or on the diff site that we might be able to publish?
Yeah, it's probably over community development. That came out of their shop. But we
Okay,
can get a hold of that and put it up there.
okay. Mike, would that suffice if we get that?
yeah, that'd be great if you have something like that. We could take a peek at it. That'd be fantastic. Thank you,
Okay.
Brian.
You bet. Are we down to 4?
Yeah. Oh, yes. The final one. I think noting the index issue. The city should use the index that they're allowed to under their current ordinance, and we use the ENR in our own calculations because we feel it's a little bit of a better reflection of cost escalation for these types of valuing water and sewer infrastructure. But both are reasonable to use, and the city could use the San Francisco index or update the ordinance to use the ENR, whatever it chooses.
I keep putting myself on mute. I think our comments just like, hey, just use the one that's in the code. Pretty simple. And then I did have some other thoughts just on, the buy-in as well. I think the buy-in's a big component of the overall connection fee. It's a significant portion of it. And when we had and going through the replacement cost, new, less depreciation, it just in some of those facilities, there's some of them that are past their useful life cycle, right, and are probably scheduled for replacement. So typically, what we've seen is hey, if something has a 50-year life cycle, it's been fully depreciated, which means it's probably then going to roll into the utility rate for replacement. Then those facilities drop out of the buy-in, is what we've seen in a lot of places. And so we want to make that suggestion. I don't think it's huge dollars, but really every little bit's going to help. And then there's other ones that there just really isn't sufficient information in there to understand what the facility was. Some of them are listed as rehab replacement or just listed as additions. And this goes for both the water and the sewer. So, if it'd be possible to get some additional clarification on what some of those are, because, the way we think about the buy-in is, you have a set of infrastructure that is, benefiting future development. We don't really know of those facilities that you're having us buy into. We don't really know what available capacity is. There's no capacity calculation. So in light of that, it's maybe taking a more refined look at some of these facilities and saying, okay, maybe these are really a replacement. These ones are going to be past their useful life, and we can eliminate some of those. So just as an overall thought, to kind of take a look at that buy-in approach, and maybe have a more refined discussion on the asset list, and start looking at things that, all right, maybe shouldn't be included. We didn't provide sufficient information to even know what they are, if they provide any capacity or benefit. So I think we just want to make sure that what we're buying into is truly something that has capacity and is beneficial to new development.
And yeah, that's a comment. A good comment. Well, we just for clarification, we in the update we're limited a little bit by what was recorded in the past. We did work with the city to actually go through the asset listing, and we actually removed quite a few assets that we didn't have a clear attribution to a function. Non-distribution or collection assets that were past their useful life would have had in the update. You'll see that those were would have a zero value that would escalate, so they wouldn't be adding to the system value. And then as far as the distribution and collection assets, we excluded all assets below a certain size, and did use a fairly conservative valuation number as well. So we did take some steps to kind of keep our valuations conservative. But yeah, some of the asset descriptions, the detail, we have to, it's just kind of how they're recorded in the property accounting. So
Yeah, I understood that some of these things are old, right? And the records aren't very good, but there are things that were just listed like as additions. I don't know what that is. Or there were things that were listed as admin costs. And so, and so there just seemed like there was maybe some remnant listings that maybe could come out as well. And I would just go back and check. And it seemed like there were certain facilities that had a zero book value, but then, they did have some kind of index cost or buy-in approach. So yeah. And then I just thinking about the buy-in as well is, a lot of those facilities are items that water treatment plants, sewer treatment plants that, I think the city gets grant funding for a lot of times for facilities kind of like that. I'm not sure if that's the case, but I'm just going to pose the question that, if the city did, receive grant funding for, previous, water treatment plants, sewer treatment plants, whatever it might be, is it appropriate to have that portion of the facility cost included in the buy-in? Because in theory, the city never incurred those costs, and so really, in my mind, we should be paying for costs that the city actually incurred. And if you didn't incur costs because you received a $20 million grant to help expand or build a new water treatment plant, the new development they should only be paying for the index cost associated with what the city actually incurred, as opposed to the whole dollar amount plus grant funding. So, I mean, just take a look at that. There's not any information in there because, my concern is you get some of these old data points and some of these grant funding options and applications did come in, help delivered some of these facilities. And I just don't think it's appropriate that then new development has to pay for costs that the city didn't incur.
that's a good point. And, I think definitely, I think future updates will note it. And I think we also, went off the best available records, and, it didn't appear that there were items that were there to offset, but we could, I'm sure stuff has happened in the past that may not, it's sometimes stuff gets far enough in the past that it's not noted. So
Yeah, some of those things, Eric, I was looking at, I mean, they're, from the 60s and 70s, not going to be really any records. But I think, if something has happened within the last 15, 20 years in terms of some of those expansions, maybe there's some document records in old CIPs that maybe are still hanging around that can show, hey, yeah, we did our treatment plant expansion and we received a grant from the state or the federal government. And yeah, so just a thought.
Yeah, and I can let you know from my experience, unfortunately, we haven't had much success with grants. So we kind of fall in that middle category where we're just well enough off that we don't qualify. So yeah, we actively pursue the grants, but there hasn't really been like a large grant in like the last 10, 15 years that I can think of that offset some kind of project cost.
Yeah,
But
no,
it's worth taking a look into.
Yeah, I just take a peek, because we've come across these in other places where they had an asset inventory and they were charging for a bunch of land acquisition costs, right? And I asked the same question, and then they went back through and did some research, and they found that, hey, yeah, some of the things that they were asking new development to pay into from a existing inventory land acquisition perspective, that the public agency never actually incurred the cost to acquire that land. It was either dedicated to them or it was existing city property or something like that. And so, they removed that cost from the fee study. So,
Greg, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. I'm curious, does City of Vacaville have a retrofit program?
Meaning we retrofit pipes and.
No, meaning, for example, in other jurisdictions, if you can get credits if you retrofit existing, like apartments or homes, you partner with local plumbers to put low flow toilets, low flow shower heads, low flow, whatever, that you get credits towards your water hookup fees. Some municipalities do that.
Yeah, we do not. It's the Solano County Water Agency that funds that.
So there are no credits available, and there's nothing that the city of Vacaville does.
Not that I'm aware of.
Something to look into.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, so are we done with water sewer?
Yeah, I think that's it, Brian, and appreciate this opportunity to talk with you and your team on some of our findings.
And we talked, I think we skipped over it. I didn't bring it up, but we did talk about the Station 74.
Yeah, I think that was discussed with Chris and Matt over at DPFG.
Right. Okay. Well, Greg, you don't have a question, right? Your hand's still up. I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Well,
If I could
Yeah.
ask a question,
Yeah.
I've been taking notes here, and I'm certain all of you have been taking notes as well at the city. It would be great to put together sort of a list of the items that perhaps the city has agreed to change or look at or adjust, so that we can fully comprehend, what your staff's response has been to the peer review. I think that would be very helpful for our members to understand. I.e. the various things that you've agreed with our consultants need to be looked at, or I think there were a couple of smaller things that were noted, et cetera. So in addition to the transportation legacy projects issue, the 112 million that we heard about. So
Lisa, I don't think that's an unreasonable request, and we will endeavor to get that done. Both a review, as I mentioned earlier before Tom left. We are going to put this online, so you'll be able to reference it at a future date, transcript and the video as well. But we'll go ahead and make that list of actionable items and get that out to you. Well, I mean, I
thank you
think
so
this
much
is,
for your willingness to do this. We really do appreciate it.
I think it's been a beneficial meeting, and I appreciate the willingness to sit down with us, and we will get something out to you as soon as we can.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Lisa, while I've got you on the line,
Yeah.
I know legal has dropped off, but we've only heard from you at this point in terms of how the development community would like to present at the city council on Tuesday. Whether that your recommendation or I think your preference was that you wanted your time, and I hadn't heard from anybody else yet. So at this point, we're probably going to go with, unless something changes, with everybody will get extended time as opposed to one individual representing the group. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's basically what I've been hearing as well. We BIA does have a number of members working in Vacaville, but we do not represent all of the builders and developers, and so we certainly wouldn't presume to speak for them. And I suspect there may be some desire for them to speak. And we are having an internal meeting, with our members tomorrow, and there may be some outcome from that where we pool some time from some of our members, or we may not. Each of our members may decide that he or she wishes to speak individually. So if there is a change in that, I will let you know.
When we're talking, excuse me, I'm sorry. When we're talking tomorrow, Brian, I fully don't expect people to march up to the podium one after the other and say the same thing. So
No, we're going
of
to try to coordinate that. Yeah.
ensure that, that doesn't happen.
Okay. We want to, the mayor has been, I've had conversations with the mayor. He's been very clear with me that he wants to provide that time, and I want to make sure that you get the time to that end, I'll probably send something out Monday morning, but I'll iterate it now. If you have presentation materials that you want us to be able to put up on the screen or pass out, whatnot, if you can get those materials to us before noon on Monday, that would be helpful so that we can set up the computer and anything else that's needed related to any kind of documentation materials. For the city's part, we are going to make sure that the PowerPoint for Tuesday's council meeting will be put up online by noon on Monday as well.
Great.
So,
That sounds terrific. Thank you. I
Okay.
see the agenda's out. I haven't looked yet at the staff report.
Yeah.
well, we appreciate the time and the opportunity, and the dialogue, I think, has been very productive. So I appreciate it. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you. Have a good
Thank you.
evening,
You
everyone.
too. See you later.
Bye.